And I'm one of the staff translators, but actually my day job is anime producer for the last 31 years. So I figured out it would be a good thing to have a bunch of voice actors talk about what they do, you know, what their day in, day out is like, and then maybe ask each other questions, and then allow you to ask some questions. So going back to me, I've been working, my very first show was a little known show called Elmo in Half. And then I left Viz and went to Bondi for a while, did a show called Grand Lagan. And then the last 15 years, I've been doing a little known IP called Pokemon. So enough about me. Let's bring up our guests. Dozo. And I'm not going to introduce them. You know who they are. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Minasan, onegaishimasu. Oh, do you need a mic too, Jay? You can turn the last one on.
Hello.
Okay, guys. Mr. Ishikawa, you asked who's going to go first. You go first.
Good morning. My name is Hideo Ishikawa, a Japanese voice actor.
You interpret what you just said? Ohayo gozaimasu. What I do in my town is I say what she said.
I don't speak English, so.
Next.
Hi, I'm Diana Garnet. I am based in Japan, and I voice act bilingually in both English and Japanese.
Hello. I'm Brandon McInnis. I am an American voice actor. Thank you. Hi, I'm Colin Ryan, and I'm an actor from the UK.
So, as I was introducing the panel to everybody, this is going to be a sort of a discussion, Q&A session about what y'all do. So if you feel like you have a question to ask each other, please do so. And then if there's a lull, maybe I'll ask the audience for a question, or I'll ask one myself. Of the roles you did, or things you performed on, what are you most well known for? Colin.
So I suppose I'm most well known for playing Alphino in Final Fantasy XIV.
On some other TV show? Some sci-fi TV show?
Yes, so well, I did an episode of Doctor Who. Is that what yes, season 10, I think it was. Peter Capaldi was my doctor. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to get it in there. So I was most excited to hear about that this morning. And Brandon?
I'm probably most known for currently the protagonist in the latest Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem Engage, Alir. As Demon 6 in Demon Slayer. The creepy voice like this, yeah.
And the hot sister.
Oh, and voiced by the Aaron.
And Diana, this is the first time I'm actually doing a panel with you.
Yeah, hi.
So, tell me about you.
So I would say that I'm probably best known for singing, but when it comes to voiceover, probably best known for either Lumen from the Inti Creates various franchises, so like Azure, Striker, Gunvolt, all of that, or various Sanrio work I can't quite name, but it involves Hello Kitty, Cinnamon, Kuromi, Gudetama, and several others.
what have you signed the most of?
サイン会でいろんなものをサインしましたが、一番サインしたもの
ナルトの内杯たちが一番多いですね。
The most I got is Naruto's Itachi Uchiha.
It blew my mind when I heard that not only did you play Ketsi in Final Fantasy VII, you're also the voice of Leon, quote unquote, which is Squall in the Kingdom Hearts game, but your actual first entry into Final Fantasy was the voice of Aura in Final Fantasy X or X. It's just amazing.
初めにファイナルファンタジーの貢献として役やそういったことはキングダムハーツですとかゲームにすごく貢献したがそのファイナルファンタジーの一番の大きな大学としてはファンが来てやりました。
すごいです。
Thank you.
So I think I might throw it to you guys. Is there anything you want to know from anybody else? Hey, what
I do.
何が質問でしょうか?
Well, what I find interesting is because we've worked together. I was so happy to finally get to work with you on something.
It was like a long time coming, yeah. I was like just waiting.
But something I've noticed, having met voice actors that work in Japan that are based in Tokyo, is that the way agents and managers work is so different. And I want to talk about that. And I'm curious to get the UK perspective as well. From the American side of things in LA, you usually have a primary agent who's either in New York City or LA, or they're bi-coastal, or usually an agent in one of those locations is your primary agent, and then you can have multiple regional agents, and they take a cut of the work they get you from those regions, right? So if I book something in LA, my LA agent will get a cut. If I book something in Texas, my Texas agent will get a cut. And then a manager is an optional thing, completely separate from that. So you can, I know, I've seen your face, right? Because it works completely differently depending on how we talk about this. But so you can have a manager in voiceover, and they take 10% of all of your earnings, generally. Generally, it's 10%. Just 10. Yes, but it's not uncommon to have an agent, like if an agent gets you work and you have a manager, you have to give 10% to the agent and 10% to the manager.
Only 20%?
It's more for you?
We'll get into that.
But yeah, so that's how it works in the United States. You do not have to have a manager as an actor, but generally you want an agent. You can represent yourself, but it's much harder to get work because the agents have connections.
Aren't there a lot of things that are blocked? I know that there are some jobs that only work through certain agencies.
That's correct. It's hard to get access to the really big projects if you don't have an agent, and because those agent connections are very important. And many times, companies who are casting a project will only send their projects to a specific agent or a small list of agents. And so if you aren't signed with that agent, you're not reading on that project. So
I've run into that a few times, yeah. Because I don't have American representation, and they're like, oh, we need an agency, and I'm like, I have one, but they don't speak English.
We'll talk about it.
See, networking. Wonderful things come out of this.
I want to hear the UK perspective, though. How does it work there?
Yeah, so the concept of having a manager, it seems to be a very US thing. Because in the UK we don't have that set up at all. So our agents are our managers as well. They kind of do everything. I do have a separate voiceover agent to my acting agent.
Which is common in LA too. Sometimes you can have low, sometimes a package, but it just depends.
Okay. Yeah, but it seems like a manager is quite hands-on over here. Is that right?
Yes.
But yeah, we wouldn't get our agents coming to our to set or anything like that.
What if there's a problem?
Then we just call them or email them. Yeah, but it does seem to be a very different setup. Yeah.
And can you have multiple agents? Are regional agents a thing?
No, because the UK is so tiny.
Right.
Compared to the US, yeah, we just have one agent. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if, theoretically, could you have a US agent?
Oh yeah. So yes, a lot of people who work a lot in the States do often have a US agent, and the US managers as well. So if they work in high-profile television or film, then it would be the same setup as US actors. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, most of my work it takes place in the UK, so there hasn't been a need for US representation. Although I'd love that, it would be great to do more over here. Yeah, any agents out
Hustling
So,
crowd.
so now that we've gotten the US, little Japan sprinkled in, and the UK, in Japan, how does agents managers work?
まあ、基本は、声優一人一人のこの契約だったりするんですけども、まあ、多くは事務所に入って声優事務所がありまして、そこに入ってそこでマネージャーがいて、そして僕たちがその事務所に、所属するっていうそういう形の、契約という形になってるんですけども、まあ、そこからいろんな作品に対してオーディションがあって、そこで受けて、そこで受かればそこの作品に参加できるんですけど、受からなければ永遠にその事務所にいることになりますね。
Alright, so generally in Japan, there's like individual contract between each work, but the most common practice as a voice actor is to join an agency. And once you join that agency has their own managers, their own agents that find jobs for the voice actors. But it's not really like they find a job and they get the job. No, it's more they have an audition, and once they take the audition and they win the audition, that's when they finally get a job. So if you don't pass that audition, then you're just a person at the agency forever.
And so you can't be a part of multiple agencies. I guess you couldn't in Japan, or can you?
So there's several different types, but generally for voice actors it's exclusive, and so you work only with that one agency. But there are times that different agencies will talk to each other, and there's also, it's not just audition based. There are times that you are offered roles, but as he said, just to build off of it, you are in an exclusive agency, and they take a much larger cut. It's generally anywhere between 30 and 50%. Wow. Yeah.
所属会社が取る給料の分が日本はものすごい高いと言ってますけど、彼らは10%から20%あたりなので。
アメリカへようこそ。
あんまり多くは語らないです。
I won't say much.
うちのマネージャーも今来てるんで。
My manager is here right now, so I don't want to say much.
誰かがこの話を通訳して日本にこう、ね、流してしまったらもう僕クビになります。
So if someone translated all this in Japanese and just sent it over to Japan, then I'd be fired.
Well, I can talk. My manager's not here. But what I will say is that Japanese managers are much more full service. So they take care of absolutely everything for you, which is incredibly cushy. It's nice. And so I definitely think that it's just a different relationship. There's no better or worse. It's just different. And I would say that for the Japanese industry, it makes a lot of sense because they offer, for instance, on-scene protection. If there's something you're like, hey, manager, blah, blah, blah. And manager's like, I got you, fam. So it's really nice.
Okay, well, I have a follow-up question then. Because you said if something's wrong on set, you can call the manager.
Yes.
But in the US, if something goes wrong on set, if it's union, we can call SAG-AFTRA.
This is gonna get sticky.
Oh, it's okay. I don't want to but I'm curious about what is the perspective on the Japan side of things with that, and you don't have to I don't want to.
So I think the union makes sense for America. I think it's necessary. But in Japan, that's what we have agencies for. Yeah, so we don't need a lot of those protections because they advocate for us, and it's case by case.
Interesting. But also, I feel like the agencies in Japan tend to be very large, right?
They are. I'm in a smaller one.
A smaller one?
Yeah, and I'm not just voiceover. I'm a bunch of other So, but it does depend. Like, there's also some people that run their own agencies. Like, if they get large enough, there are some freelance voice actors as well. But you know, there are the other things like Audi and 81 and all of those across all of those really big ones.
Gotcha.
And they're all friendly with each other.
Yeah.
So they all have like sort of a certain set of standards. And Japan has the ranking system and everything, but everything's decided. There's no undercutting, there's no overcutting. It's quite standardized.
I feel like it's much riskier to be freelance than.
Yeah, because you can't get into auditions. The auditions go to the agencies.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And like my agency is very small, so I have a hard time getting into the larger auditions. But a lot of that's also because I'm foreign, so I mean.
Right. Which is a whole other conversation we have,
That's a
right?
different conversation.
めちゃくちゃ詳しいですね。
普通に私事務所入ってますから。
You're really knowledgeable about all this, and then it's like, well, I'm in an agency, so.
She said that part in English.
I'm sorry.
No,
日本の声優より知ってますよ。
She's a lot more knowledgeable than Japanese voice actors.
そんなことないです。そんなことないです。必死に働いてます。それだけです。
Yeah, I'm just working hard.
Me too, me too.
Okay, so now that we've gotten the first set of questions clear, anybody out there want to ask a question? Here, I'm right here.
On the promotion side, this is for Hideo. On the promotion side of things, what has been your favorite memory, like hosting an event? 'Cause I know you like host all the Simple Gear, like lives and premiere events. What's your favorite like memory of that part of your job?
イベントを開催したことはあまりないんですが、僕は日本でバンドをやっておりまして、もうやめてるんですけども。
Alright, so in Japan, I don't really host too many events nowadays, but before I used to be in a band. I'm no longer in it, but I used to be in a band.
相方って何て言うんですかね。
Like partner.
ナルトの鹿丸役の森久保祥太郎と2人でバンドをやってまして。
Yes, so you might know. So I used to be in a band with Shotaro Morikubo, who you might know as Shikamaru from Naruto.
その時は自分たちで T シャツを作って売ったり、もういろんな活動をしてました。
So at that time, we used to make our own T-shirts and we would sell it like as much as we could back then.
若い時ですけどね。
That was when I was young.
いや、フォークで手に入りますかね？
探してください。
I wonder if you can find it in the Afro auctions, which is more popular than eBay in Japan.
Please look for it.
Thank you for the interview. You have brought up the your events that you hosted.
Thank you.
So, this may sound a little bit sticky. With the world of voiceover going through some turbulence with like the rise of artificial intelligent voices, how would you describe your like current experience in your regions of the world with this kind of wild west of regulations on voice work, not just from like companies, but just the easy access of it at the moment?
I feel like in Japan, AI voiceover is inconceivable. Like, they're just like, what? Why? So there's not a ton of it. Not a lot, no. Like, I have everybody sign the Naviwriter because why not? But like, and I'm trying to get that standardized in Japan, but at the same time, like, everybody's like, what? But actors are better.
Well, yeah.
AI は魂がない。
AI has no soul.
声優には魂がある。
Voice actors have soul.
Being in a producer position, you wouldn't believe the amount of AI voiceover apps and groups that reach out to me saying, hey, how'd you like to do this? And my standpoint as producer and being trying to friends of voice actors, because it's important to maintain relationships. I said, I think AI can be helpful in time coding, pre-production stuff, thing that doesn't cross the border between time saving to creative. And part of the whole writer's strike was on AIs being taught how to write scripts. And then of course the actors joined in on that part, and I'm totally in agreement with that. That being said, if it's an internal video, something, and for a company like Pokemon, right? Or I will not. I have to say, anything I say about the work I do, past or present, does not reflect the opinions of the company. And just a personal opinion. But let's say there's you're in the middle of nowhere country with a language only spoken by 5,000 people, and AI can take an American TV show, let's just say, and it can learn all the lines and dub it into that language in a country supposedly that has no actors, and you get it flat perfect, speaking the local language. To be broadcasting, your resolve may teeter a little bit, right? Because me, I'm all about, it doesn't matter if it's for one person or for 5,000 persons, but if you're a corporation that just wants to provide it to that language, yeah, I don't think there's much profit in it if it's only 5,000 people, but you're expanding it. So it's just food for thought, devil's advocate, just add it.
I think I looked at the UK's.
Yeah. Well, I very recently had to turn down a job because for a voiceover, because the contract came and it said one of the clauses was that we retain the right to use and permit others to use your voice, likeness, sobriquet, all these different things in perpetuity throughout the universe. And I just saw that and I was like, are you actually serious? It sounds like it's a kind of a made-up thing, but this is happening. It's a real thing that is happening. The threat is here.
Big names, very big names, sending out these kinds of contracts, trying to get actors to sign huge names that would blow your mind. And that's why it's so important that we nip it in the bud right now.
Absolutely.
And that's why and I'm going to talk about this just for a brief second. That's why SAG-AFTRA is striking right now for video games, video game contracts. We're doing that because of AI clauses. That is what's happening right now. There is nothing else that is more important than trying to protect that. The other thing that's happening right now is SAG-AFTRA and NAVA are pushing legislation in Congress called the No Fakes Act. And I would encourage all of you, you'll read about this shortly because it's just started happening, but the No Fakes Act gives everyone, every person in the United States, every citizen, the right to their own likeness, their own voice, and their own image. So that theoretically would give us the ability to essentially copyright strike someone who is using our voice without our permission, which I think is very important. So if you see that, I encourage you to contact your legislators, contact your representatives, and be like, please sign yes on this when you see it. It's my little soapbox.
I should go further away, right? Here you go, give it to you there.
How do you know when you've really found like the right voice or the right character personality when you're doing your work? And at what point do you say like I've experimented enough and this is really what I'm going to go with for this project?
When the director says.
I think being an actor is very difficult in a vacuum, because we want to do a good job. We're like, is this good enough? And we want to give more of ourselves and this and that. And there's a trap, especially in voiceover, where you record a line and you're like, I can do that better. And then you take 20 takes and then you go back and realize that your first take was the best one.
An endless loop. All artists are like this, and so you have to have a director to be like, we're good.
It's so reassuring. You're like, oh, thank you.
And I have a correlation to that one though. Some actors thinking, okay, that fit the flaps, good enough. Let's see what they say. And my favorite response is, are you satisfied as an artist?
Yeah, and in that situation, I think also there's an argument for owning your interpretation as well. And as I don't think there's a point where you're like, yeah, this is the right. This is I've come to an end point of yeah, this is the character. I think it's a creative pursuit, and I don't think there's any right or wrong. There is your interpretation, and I think if you have confidence in that interpretation, then I think that does translate. And often the director will be in agreement as well, and kind of yeah, chime with that with your interpretation.
日本では原作があるんですけども、漫画だったり、もともとあった作品だったり。
So in Japan, a lot of the works that I work on have like original works, as in whether it's like from an adaptation from like a manga or a novel.
その中でもうファンがついている役とか言ったりするんですよね。そうなるとイメージっていうのをここに持ってる人がいっぱいいるんですよ。
So when that's the case, there's a lot of fans of that original work, so they all have their own image of that character.
いざ僕がその役を演じるにあたってやりました。そしたらって言われることもまあ中にはあったりはしますけど。
So now, once I actually act that role, some people might comment like, I'll see comments like that, all the time.
でももうやったらもうやったもん勝ちなので。
So once I do it, I've already done it. I can't change it anymore. So
もう僕がその役です。
so that's just my role.
という気持ちで、いろんな役をやっております。
And that's just how I feel whenever I act out my various roles.
You can't please every fan, so you got to stick with what you believe in. So. でもディレクターとかが言ったらちょっとイメージ違うんじゃないのっていうのは来ないですか？ Will the director say, yeah, I don't know if that's right?
まあそういうこともありますけども、でもやりきったら勝ちです。
Well, sometimes that might happen, but it's just whoever did it wins.
でもまあやっぱり皆さんにイメージっていうのをやっぱりお持ちの方結構いっぱいいらっしゃいますから、やっぱりその時にこの役で僕がこの役でよかったって言ってくれると嬉しいですね。
So because everyone has all these personal images of these characters, when someone says, "Oh yeah, your voice was perfect for that role," that makes me really happy.
そういう方たちだけを愛します。
So I'll love every one of you that says that to me.
みんなに聞きたい質問とかありますか？ Do you have a question you might want to ask the other voice actors?
日本の声優をやっぱり皆さんどう思ってるかなと思って。
How do you feel about Japanese voice actors? Just general opinions about Japanese voice actors.
世界一です。世界一です。
そうですかね。
声に関しては世界一だと思う。なんかやっぱりアニメの歴史が結構長くて、その中になんか新しいスタイルが生まれたんじゃないですか。で、アニメに関しては日本のアニメ声優は世界一だと思います。みんなのベースになっていると思う。Oh, I can translate myself. I'm sorry. So
I was going to suggest that. So.
Okay. I think that, for anime, in particular, Japanese voice actors are the best in the world. I believe that the rest of us, up until now, have been trying very hard to find that balance between what's natural for us and also what works for and what is respectful to the original product. And so I feel that for anime, Japanese voice actors are number one, but I also feel that there's a lot to be said for different interpretations. That's my disclaimer. And so I think that the voiceover world in general is starting to even out quite a bit, but it's still in Japan.
あとは元の、アニメが日本でやってる後に、アフレコをやるのかちょっとわからないんですけども、その一番最初にやった役を聞きながらアフレコをするのかとか、そういうの気になりますね。
Yes. So one thing I'd like to know is like, what I'd like to know is that whether you actually voice over after the original voice has been already recorded, or if that's the case, do you like listen to the actual original voice while you do those voiceovers?
So when we dub anime, when we do ADR of any kind, when we're dubbing into another language, yes, we preview every single line in the original language, every single one, which is very useful as someone who speaks Japanese to hear the subtext and the nuance, because I love the puzzle of localization. I love that. I mean, I used to be an interpreter, so that was when I realized, oh, I'm passionate about this, and I try to bring that into the English performance as much as possible.
There are times that it's done without it though. Like I've heard in some places they don't like referencing the original Japanese because they feel like it sort of pollutes their. Like I've had actors be like, I don't want to hear it, and I'm like, well, too bad. But because we've got the Japanese director here, so we're listening to it.
Right.
But I've had some people say that they don't want it. So I think it's maybe not standardized because we work with a lot of different countries.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's maybe not standardized.
Yeah, so with Final Fantasy XIV, we in the booth we don't listen to the Japanese. Sometimes I do request to, particularly with the kind of emotes and efforts and the kind of long yells. I think that it's really useful to hear that. Mostly because, like you say, Japanese voice actors are just so incredible at that.
Japan's really good at efforts specifically.
Just so expressive, so I find it really, really useful. But also I have, in preparation for my recording of Alphano, watched clips, cutscenes in Japanese on YouTube, just to get a flavour of the original essence of the character, to help kind of inform my own performance. So.
Yeah, I'd say as far as actors are concerned, we prefer to have it. But there are occasionally directors that are like, no, this is my vision.
Well, I think also this leads to a really interesting conversation about the dramatic sensibilities between Japanese culture and Western culture. Japan is a very visual-based culture, so we are always serving what is on the screen, what is happening. And in the English canon, specifically the British canon of writing, and like the UK's literature, I feel as though English is a much more subtextual, dramatic sense, where what is truly being said is between the lines. There's irony, what is not being said, and the meaning is more in the silences, I feel,
I'm
in
not
the
sure if
West.
I'd entirely agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Japan's a very high context language, and so you do get a lot of it. But when it comes to voiceovers specifically, I do think that Japanese tends to be more expressive than the languages generally for anime. It's a different style, and I would say that's because of the limitations of animation, where you can't have every single feeling projected on the face because it's animated. It would be way too expensive. So when we talk about sort of Western acting, a lot of times what we're thinking about is film or stage acting, where a lot of subtleties are body language or facial expression. But if we're talking about anime, we don't have the liberty of that, so the voices need to be more expressive. But what I'm noticing right now with Western voiceover is that they're going very grounded, and it's a lot of very subtle cinematic acting.
Yes.
I don't think it works.
Really?
That's not what Japan wants.
I think it's project dependent.
It might be
I
project
truly
dependent,
think.
yeah.
So there's a show called 91 Days, which this, of course, 91 Days, right? Now, this, full disclosure, this takes place in Prohibition era Chicago. So when we localized, we were able to use historically accurate
That
slang
was really
and
well,
accents
yeah.
and the grounded performance. So, but yes, the anime is very stylistic in a way, and so I think it's project dependent. When I say like the meaning is in the subtext, I specifically mean like you go back to the root, Shakespeare.
Yeah, and I felt that. I was like, yes.
Yeah, and that's cinematic, but I don't think it's project dependent.
I think you're right. It's probably project dependent, but I would definitely say that there's a bit of a mismatch at times when I'm hearing like very cinematic, grounded, like this kind of like acting. I'm like, it's not really I think respectful of the original IP always. Just because I work with the Japanese directors directly.
Yeah.
They don't want that.
Right, well,
They're like, we want anime.
Because that's not the sound, right? For
It's not
most
the sound.
projects,
Yeah.
I will give that.
But there are definitely more realistic cinematic projects that I think are becoming more popular, especially with streaming platforms. And those I think fit that very well.
Yeah.
So I think you need to know what style to use when, and us as actors need to be able to perform all of those styles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not like you're gonna want cinematic reads on a show, right?
I mean, I have an example to add to that. Back in the Viz days, we did a project with Bandai called Jinro, it's the red spectacles,
Yeah.
paramilitary world, and we tried to dub it normally, like with anime reactions, getting shot. We said, you know what? When that bullet went through you, you're dead. Just make the react to the impact and stop talking. And we just we just sort of decided to dub this like you're dubbing over a live action movie. And I thought it worked better than, somebody who falls out of a tree, hits every branch on the way down, and you can still get the at the bottom when you would have been bombed dead.
There's also a lot to be said for, of course, project by project, but there's a lot to be said for, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Well, I think so I'm very interested in translation localization.
Yeah.
There are different theories on translation.
There are,
Right,
yeah.
and the one I subscribe to personally is called functional translation,
Yeah.
where what is the impact to a native speaker of that language, and how are you going to make that the same? And how,
I agree with that, yeah.
you want to make the person who's hearing it have the same feeling in either language, and that is culturally contextual.
That was, I think, my point was there's a lot to be said for localizing into the culture that you
Yes.
are localizing it into.
Yeah.
But I would also say that there's a fine line between adapting for a culture and whitewashing that we need to avoid.
Interesting.
Yeah, like for instance, a lot of gyaru are specifically localized as Valley Girl. Why? Because let's think about who actually dubs are for. Dubs are not necessarily for native speakers of the language. You get a lot of Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore watching English dubs because they can't read the English subtitles fast enough.
Okay.
They don't know what a Valley Girl is. They consume Japanese media. They don't necessarily know what that is, so it's lost on them. Why don't we keep gyaru as gyaru? It's its own culture. We don't need to whitewash it.
So how would you recommend representing that in English?
We can just make it a teachable moment, gyaru or gyaru.
日本でもやっぱりアメリカの外国映画の吹き替えとかやったりするんですよ。
So in Japan, we also do like voiceovers or ADR of American or Western films.
台本を見ると口の尺っていうんですかね、口がパクパクしているところの尺。
So the mouth, so on my script, it has like the length of the mouth flaps.
この割合でセリフがものすごい量の時あるんですよね。
So sometimes, just in the really short span of a mouth flap, there's a ton of lines that I have to fit in.
どれくらい早く喋っても絶対に入らないなっていう時も多々ありますよ。
So there's a lot of times where I'll be like, there's no way I can fit all these lines within those mouth flaps.
だから外国映画の吹き替えの声優、声優をやっている方、一緒ですけどアニメの声優をやっている方も一緒ですけども、その外国映画の吹き替えの方の演技とまたアニメの演技っていうのは若干違ってたりするんですよね。
So there's a lot of voiceover, like Western film voice actors and anime voice actors, and obviously there's similarities, but a main difference between the two is how they act or how they perform their roles in the Western films when they do voiceovers.
だから外国映画の吹き替えの現場に行った時とアニメの現場に行った時で自分の感じ方が全然違うので、例えばさっき言った尺が短くても入れてくださいっていう人もいるんですよ。
And so whenever I go into, when I do Western movie voiceover and anime voiceover, how I feel is really different. For example, when I voice over Western films, there are some directors that say you have to fit in all those lines within that mouth flap.
アニメだとその後これ入らないならじゃあここ変えましょうかってセリフを 変更したりする時もあります。
So in anime, sometimes it'll be like, oh, if that doesn't fit within that frame, we might change the lines a little bit.
あとは原作は、例えば漫画とかこう書いてあるセリフは絶対にカットしちゃダメだっていう現場もあります。
Yes, and when it comes to anime, if there's an original work, there's some lines that, you know, because they're so important, there's no way there's never a chance for it to change the lines because it's from the original work.
僕がジョジョの奇妙な冒険という作品に出た時あったんですけど、
So there was a time where I performed in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
主人公の、ジョセフ・ジョースターじゃあジョセフ・ジョースターじゃないごめんなさい忘れました。
So there's a main character, but I forgot his name.
ジョルノ・ジョバーナがオラ違う、無駄っていうセリフが、漫画で書いてあって漫画に、167個書いてあって。
So George Obama, there's a part where he says "muda" when he's doing the punches, and there's a time where in the manga he says "muda" 167 times.
167個きっちり間違えずに、読まなければいけないっていう制約があるんですよ。
So there was actually a binding contract where you had to say all 167 of those mudas.
そういう作品もありますね。原作ものだと。
Yeah, so if it's original work, there are some works that require you to do all those things.
I think it's also really interesting because most dubs are done by third parties. They don't have that information. So it would be really nice if that information was available to the English side as well, so that it would be able to be consistent to that author's vision. And I think that's what my main goal is in the industry as sort of like a bridge, is I want to bring that 167 mudas to English.
But yes, I think I do wish there was more connection.
I'll work on it.
Thank you.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, we'll talk later.
Alright, so we're down to like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Try to squeeze in more questions.
Yes.
Do you want to talk to each other?
Well, I have a question,
What do you want to
actually,
do?
if you don't mind. Yeah, about vocal health. And because I was saying earlier about just how expressive Japanese voiceovers are, and in anime you have to do making very extreme sounds with your voice. And how is vocal health viewed in Japan? And is there much care for voice actors?
Depends on the person. Everybody's vocal environment is different. In my case, I specialize in really high, clear vocals. So, I know, right? So I'm very picky about my personal vocal health. Like I sleep in like a pentagram of humidifiers. It's like a seance of humidifiers. And then I have like, of course, throat coat and like the fun Chinese herbal medicines and all of that. But that's just because of my particular situation. I run a bit dry normally. Japan's a very humid country, which is great for my voice. But I would say it's probably different.
何もしてないですね。すごい。
I don't do anything.
それは嘘です。
That's a lie.
でもやっぱり声優は人によりますね。
It depends on the person.
やってる方もいらっしゃれば、もう全く気にしないっていう人もいますし、なんなら、ね、僕の先輩も、朝の8時ぐらいまで飲んでて、10時から仕事っていう人も、昔はいました。
Yeah, and so some people do take care of their voice a lot, and some people really don't care. For example, one of my senpais or one of my older I guess senpai or my older veteran friends, he would be drinking until 8 a.m. in the morning, and then he'll have work at 10 a.m.
でもやっぱり現場に入ったら、やっぱり自分のベストの声を出さないといけないので、雨だったりとか、あとこの、加湿っていうんですかね、保湿っていうんですか、喉をこう潤すものをこう口に含んだりとかって、そういうことはしますけど、そんなになんかもうすごい気をつけてるってことは、あんまりないかなって思いますね。
So usually when I work, obviously I want to bring my
ただし台本をもらったらすごい読み込みます。
But if I receive my script, I'll really read into it.
もう寝る間も惜しんでずーっと台本を読んでます。
So I'll sometimes, share out some of my sleep time to really look into my script.
まあそれが仕事ですからね。
Well, because that's just my job.
I've heard some actors don't like seeing their scripts beforehand because they want authentic reactions, but like that's arienai. Because like in Japan, we like scripts, right? Like we're
Yeah.
obsessed with them. But I've had a couple people tell me in session when I've directed them, oh, I don't like spoiling myself, I want an authentic reaction. I'm like, if you're an actor, you can do it anytime. Like, what?
Yeah, and
What's
that's
that?
like actor preference. I think, of course, in an ideal world, we could always prepare.
Of course.
But also, the Japanese are very, in the ADR world, in the States, they don't want to send you the files. Or at least the companies that we work with.
The
that
NDAs
license
be
it.
quick, right?
The NDAs be quick, right?
Okay.
But also, production works so quickly in ADR that many times they don't have the scripts until right before. So you have, it is a byproduct of
Okay.
just the way it works that we
I see.
cold read everything. And if you want to do anime in the States,
Yeah.
you better be real
I
good.
mean, I think all of us can cold read.
Yeah,
It's
of
just-
course.
We were just wondering why.
Why?
But now I know you guys don't get your scripts.
We don't get our
until,
scripts. Right.
Girl.
Yeah, every single anime that I have ever ADR'd, I have never seen the script ahead of time, and I'm cold reading it.
I wonder if there's a way that we can get right after the Japanese actors record because they change the lines sometimes. I wonder if there's a way that we can start the localization process earlier so you guys have at least a week.
I wish, but
Oh my
now.
In my defense, being on the other side of the glass, I've never had an actor ask me for a script early.
I don't think they should have to. As somebody that does casting and directing quite frequently, it's part of my process to send the scripts A, as soon as I have them, and B, along with all of the other materials that they might need. Just because in Japan we're used to having the scripts as soon as they are approved and done, so that we can properly do it. If I wouldn't be upset if they asked me, but I wouldn't expect them to need to ask me because it's my job as someone in production to send it to them when I have it.
At the same time, I'm just a producer and leaving the work to the studio we hire, whether it be SDI, VSI Deluxe, Bang Zoom, NYAV Post, whoever. And when they say we need to do this and this and this, it goes, you know what? That sounds like a sausage making problem. As long as we get the sausage on time, I don't care what goes into it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're saying, we don't get scripts early, but at the same time, if you don't ask or expect it, you think it's the norm, then
Yeah,
who's
there's
at
not an
fault?
expectation.
Maybe we can change that. Actually. I would
Let's
love that.
change it.
Yeah, let's change it because I was in video games. Many times we do get the scripts
Yeah,
ahead of
send it to
time.
you,
If it's a
week or two
remote
ahead.
session, especially, we'll get it ahead of time, which I always appreciate. And I always read those scripts ahead of time. And how about on the UK side of things?
It's usually very last minute. We don't get weeks and weeks with a script.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're working on it weekly,
I
so,
would expect 2-3 days at worst.
Yeah, usually a few days before,
Yeah.
and which for me as a slow reader, it's not enough time to actually read through a whole script. So a lot of the time, I'm kind of cold reading
Yeah.
as well.
We definitely have that in Japan as well for commercials or heavy NDA things, but for an anime, we would expect it because we would want to know what happens.
But also, I mean, it's also the job of a director working in anime to give the context that the actor
I would hope
needs.
they would know what
Oh
happens.
yeah, they absolutely are very well read up, and it's their job to tell you very quickly in session, here's your circumstances, here's what's happening, you need to be mindful of this, it's going to happen later, and go.
That's good. Okay.
So, wow. I knew this hour wasn't going to blow by because I was saying, we can do Q&A if things get slowed down or stick. But I think, I'm going to, hey, end the show. Somebody wants to ask a question?
And she's been
no,
dying.
okay, one question. All right. I was going to do something else, but It's gonna be good, right?
Hi, sorry, this is loud. Yo, we're in the same shirt, Rusty.
Give it.
Give it. Duh. I am a lifelong dub, specifically dub anime voice acting fan. Like super fan since I was 9 years old. That is all I've ever cared about, anime dub voice actors. And so I know more about them than most. And I know that a lot of, especially like the more famous voice actors, I know like Colin, Beard, Tom Habercorn, and I can't name any more off the top of my head. Because, yeah. No, I'm saying.
Wearing the shirt is fine.
No, I'm saying that I know they also do a bunch of other things, and like the voice directing and the like they have a bunch of different hats. I was wondering if it's ever the same in other places. Like, do you have to wear all of those different hats?
I do, as a foreigner. I don't have, I'm not expected to be in the industry, and so I've ended up having to branch out horizontally quite a bit. And also, I'm in a position where I'm able to work directly with Japanese clients with foreign talent, and get them exactly what they're looking for, but I would say that in Japan it's very rare to do so. There are some people that do music as well. Both of us also do music, but it's not super common.
But, 声優しかしてません。
I only do voice acting.
In the UK, I think we do everything. So we have such a rich history of theatre in the UK. So a lot of us do start off as theatre actors, and then we often go into television, film as well. So often you look at people's CVs and credits, and like US and Japanese VAs and actors often have like reams and reams of credits, like voiceover credits, but we don't really in the UK because we're often doing other things as well, because we do a lot of theatre, so that explains why it often seems like, oh, this guy hasn't actually done that much, but because we're often doing other things as well.
Your wiki had like a lot of, sorry, I like look up everything, but your wiki had so much theater. I was like, ooh!
Yeah, but you don't direct or, write scripts or anything.
No.
Right, so you're still a pure actor.
Yes,
You
exactly.
just don't rope yourself into voice actor.
I feel like that's very America, just because the non-SAG jobs are sometimes paid at rates that are, I would say, unlivable.
Yeah, sometimes. Not always, but
So I feel like a lot of people moonlight in script adaptation or localization, casting and directing. Like I do it for different reasons, but when I'm spoken to other people in the industry, they're like, I kind of have to.
it depends on the region too. It is very difficult, I think, to make your living in VO.
Texas.
Yeah, as someone who moved to Los Angeles 4 years ago from Texas, yeah.
So we're down to the last 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to bring out the fan in me and ask everyone to do your favorite line or a well-known line of one of your characters. You can start, Colin.
I got one ready.
Okay.
Any Demon Slayer fans here? Alright. Oh, okay. It's getting kind of loud, I'm sorry. I'll show you no mercy, because my name is Gyutaro!
Okay, so this one has become a little bit of a meme now. So I'm not particularly proud of my delivery of this line. It's not so much of a line, but I'm going to do it for you anyway. It's a scene where Alfredo is jumping off a roof or something into a body of water. He's not a very good swimmer. And it went something like this.
Yeah.
I'll do Elise from Little Goody Two Shoes. So, for goodness sake! Otakon! I did both versions.
何が聞きたいですか？
What do you guys want to hear?
龍馬？イタチ。じゃあ龍馬とイタチを。
So I'll do Itachi Hero.
イタチはじゃあなんだろう。必殺技でいいですか？
Do you mind if I do like a move from Itachi?
アマテラスサローカトン豪華級の術龍馬行くぜゲッタービーム Thank you.
I was talking with Ishikawa this morning. I said, I don't know if anybody would ask for Ryoma. 今日朝話した時に、Ryomaのリクエストは来ねえだろうなって言ってたのに。嬉しいです。Yes, that was great. So, 最後の一言。
はい。
時間なので。
はい。今日は、こういう場に来られてすごい楽しかったです。なんか思った以上に真面目な話をしてたので、僕もなんかあ、そうなんだと思って勉強になりました。これ個人的なことなんですけど、この後サイン会もありますんで、よかったらまた来てください。皆さんまたお会いしましょう。ありがとうございました。
Please.
Oh,
Oh, you know the fact that I understand both languages? I sometimes, it's been a long weekend. I'm so sorry.
Right. So, I had a lot of fun coming here, and what I was surprised was that a lot of the topics were really serious. So I was like, oh wow, I'm learning a lot of things right now. But I had a lot of fun. And also, just like a little personal thing, I have an autograph session later today, so please come to that.
It was so lovely to have all of you guys ask so many thoughtful questions. It did get a little bit spastic. But thank you so much for sticking it out. It's so special to have people from so many different walks of life and experiences able to share their experience. And I know that I learned a lot. I got answers to questions I've been dying to know for a long time, and I would love to talk to you guys more. I also have an autograph session in about an hour, and I'd love to talk more.
Thank you everyone so much for coming to this panel. This really is a special one. I don't think I've ever done a panel with people from different regions of the world, working in different markets like this, so I really appreciate being a part of it. And thank you so much for your wonderful questions. I will be at my table in 15 minutes from now.
Thank you so much for attending, and it has been joyful, and I've learned so much from the wealth of experience from these incredible artists. So yeah, thank you for coming. I won't be doing any signing, so yeah, I've got to dash off, but it's been awesome meeting you over the weekend anyway. I hope to see you again another time.
Thanks for everyone coming.